it's Ivy Slater, and you're listening to Her Success Story Podcast, a show where gutsy businesswomen share their success journey. Hi, it's Ivy Slater, and welcome back to another episode of Her Success Story. So today we have a content episode. Have not done this for a little while, but I'm going to say this was really pushed forward for a lot of the writing I'm doing about my new book that's coming out in early 2019. So listeners, subscribers, there will be a new book next year, but more importantly, there are content episodes with teaching scattered throughout the content of Her Success Story. So always feel free to join in and take a listen. Today, I want to talk about very much relationships and the value of strong relationships in the business world and what this is about. I'm going to share a few stories, and I'm going to share the importance and the values from those stories. So I'm a strong believer in relationship-driven success. Relationships drive success in sales. Relationships drive success in multiple levels of your business that I'm going to share with you today. And relationships drive success in your life as a whole. So let's start with the business piece. So for the business owners out there, when I look at relationship building activities and I look at the value of strong relationships in your business, it's the value of knowing who is in your wheelhouse. In working on this new book, I hit a stumbling block, not surprising or uncommon for writers and authors. Who did I reach out to? Did I just stay in struggle, or did I say, okay, who can help me get this moving forward and help me see an outside perspective that's the catalyst to get this on track again? Who do you pick up the phone? Who do you email? Who do you text? When you're having health issues, who are your resources? I hope it's more than just calling your doctor, that you have a wheelhouse of resources. And your doctor is, of course, one of them. It's a good thing. I want every business owner to understand, and every CEO and C-suite executive, manager, and director to understand the value of the relationship and the relationships we have with the outside people as resources. If a question arises on insurance, who do you call? If a question arises on management, who do you call? If a question arises of, I need to hire, who do you call? I was on the phone with a client the other day, and they're hiring and expanding. And they picked up the phone, they reached out to me as one of their support teams. Who else? I said, what else can you do? And when we looked at where they're hiring from, it came back to relationships and resources within their industry that they're reaching out to. So this is what you're consistently cultivating. As the same way in leadership and leaders of businesses, you want to look at relationships with not just people, but relationships with the different areas of your business. So I always say, what's your relationship with your marketing and your marketing perspectives? Do you oversee? Do you have meetings on it? Do you follow up? How do you actually feel about when you're working on marketing with your team or your CMO? What is the relationship about? Is there excitement? Is it dread? How do we shift from always cultivating great relationships? Because from great relationships with people as well as these various areas is where growth and development are. So what are we looking at marketing? How are we working with you? What's your relationship to your own marketing strategy, to your corporation's, your business's marketing strategy? This is rinsed and repeated in sales. CEO of every business, I don't care how large or small, Fortune 100, Fortune 500, $1 million, a $10 million company, as well as companies that are scaling to that. Your relationships with your sales is imperative. How are you looking at sales? How are you touching sales? How are you touching your sales teams, your people, your staff? How do you encourage them? What do you know about the pulse of the market? How are you leading them in shifting sales and growing it? I was on the phone with a client earlier who has a sales manager and is restructuring their role because she has uncovered sweet spots the sales manager has that she didn't realize that's an asset to the company. So she's saying, great, you're going to still stay in the position, but we want to restructure this position because we didn't know you had these strengths that can also benefit the company. It's staying on top of the relationship in sales that helps us see what's going on in our companies. If you're a smaller based company, every CEO must realize they are the top-notch salesperson. They're the first touch very often of the business and how they represent the business. If they're out there speaking on platforms, you're out there using a marketing and sales techniques for the brand expansion. If you're out at networking meetings and networking organizations, you are that first point of contact, and that's vitally important. You are representing the sales of the business. You might not be closing every sale, but you're the key representative. So what's your relationship with sales within your company? We look at it in the same light with Chief Financial Officer. What's your relationship with your finances? If you have a CFO, what's your relationship with your CFO? How often are you touching base on your numbers, your finances? How often are you in there looking on your growth and your expansion based on your financial outlook? And what does that look like? In that way, and if you do not have I'm going to touch base here. If you don't have a CFO and you are running the numbers of your organization, what's your relationship with that? What is your relationship with looking at your bank every day? Knowing the numbers in your business without knowing and understanding and falling in love with looking at the numbers in your business. If we stay in rebellion around that, we can't use a practical knowledge to scale and grow from a financial perspective and make good financial decisions. So if you're a smaller business and you're running the books, or if you have people running your books, but you're really overseeing it, you must have a very close relationship as well with the numbers, and you are 100% responsible. Many of my clients have to report to me on their numbers in their growing and scaling businesses at all times. That's how we know what's going on. That's how we know what could be tweaked in the marketing and sales and be aware of it, because the results are in the numbers. If we're looking at the results and we're looking at those numbers, we can see what we're doing in marketing as well as sales. You know, I also want to talk about a piece called the relationship to your mindset. And this is the kind of what I'll refer to as the woo piece of business. Okay. The woo piece of business is an important piece of business. It's where you show up and how you show up mentally in your business. Are you excited for it? Are you the visionary? Do you stay grounded? So there's some, I'm not going to go into it, but I'm going to share with you, there's some amazing teachings by Sir Richard Branson on the entire mindset perspective of being great business leaders. Maybe we'll bring some of those to light on future episodes of her success story. So the mindset piece is a really important piece. I'm a strong believer, I've shared this a little bit before, I'm a strong believer in showing up grounded, showing up with a gratitude practice, showing up with a vision practice for your business. And you can only do that from a place of groundedness and centeredness. That goes a little bit back to, you know, me as a dancer in my very early years of always showing up and being your core, your center. And when that's held together and you're coming with a strong core, you know your body can do anything. When you show up with a strong core in your business, your mindset, your business, your personal world can and will expand everywhere. So sharing a few examples of relationship building. Relationship building is a beautiful thing to be done on your social media platforms, especially LinkedIn. Don't just link in with people because, you know, it kind of looks good and you have more people in your wheelhouse. Link in with people that you want to build relationships with. And it's not always about looking for clients. It's about building a resource. I know my success in 20 some odd years in business has been built on resources. Landing my very first printing client came from working relationships. When, short story here, when I got into printing and I was told there's 2 ways to get out there and build a book of business. There's the yellow pages or the pavement. Pick one and get started. Or you could pick both, and when you're not pounding the pavement, be in the yellow pages and start cold calling. I was like, oh my goodness, this is so not for me, yet I've sold for years. Where's the disconnect? And I went back and I said, well, this isn't gonna work, you know? And I went back to my old boss, who I was in corporate events before I was in printing. I went back to my old boss, who I sold a lot in corporate events, and I said to her, you know, listen, I just want you to know, I don't want you to feel uncomfortable or threatened by any means, but I'm gonna start calling all the people we did business with and see who they can introduce me to, who they would know that might handle printing with their organizations or elsewhere. And her response to me was, Ivy, what do you think you were gonna do? Walk the streets of Manhattan? I said, exactly. Well, I started hitting the phones with people I already had relationships with. I started in printing in July of that year, and I had just done Columbia University's business school graduation party, an event, from their graduation to their post-graduation event, etc. So one of my early calls was Columbia University's business school. One of my first printing clients became Columbia University's business school. I think said printing school, sorry about that, print business school, right? Well-renowned business school in this country. They were one of my old clients. They became one of my first printing clients. How do you look at relationships that we think, oh, well, that was then, this is now? And how do we take a step back out there and reach back out to people? Find out where they are, what's going on in their worlds. Hey, I've been thinking about you. Love to catch up and see where you are today. I was talking to, and this is a personal story, I was talking to somebody I knew who is kind of starting to think about their next jobs, et cetera, et cetera. And I said, well, who have you worked for? And they're like, oh, well, the people I've worked for really aren't in those positions any longer. And I was like, great. And they're like, what? They're like, Ivy, are you like, you're missing it. They're not in those positions anymore. I said, even better. Reach back out to them on LinkedIn and say, hey, I don't know if you know this, but I'm working here doing this, this, and that. I was just thinking about you the other day. I see you're somewhere else. Love to catch up and see what's going on in your life. Be more interested than interesting. Well, this person did that, and guess what? A budding new opportunity is unfolding as I share this content today. So I'll always say, show up with what can you do? And with that, what can you do in the relationships that are already in your world to build on them, leverage them, and stay on track with them? Because it's in the relationships in our lives, in all facets of our lives, that's the long-term huge success for ourselves. So as we conclude this content episode, please, love to hear from you. Make some comments below. If you're not a subscriber, hey, you want to subscribe. You don't want to miss a great episode of her success story. So it comes right into your phone or whatever you're listening on. But more, I'd love to hear back from you on where you're implementing and where you're reviewing the relationships in your world. How are you out, based on our episode, what shifts and actions are you taking? Love the content episodes, but the content episodes are here to drive everybody forward. And from sharing this today, I have derived several actually emails I'm going to send out, and there's a couple of phone calls I'm going to make as I conclude, in relationships that I haven't touched base on in a little while. So thank you for sharing the content episode of her success story. Remember, feel free to subscribe. See you next week.